Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast with Jay Gordon Duncan. And if you're wondering why the J, the answer is I'm not a bagpipe player. And if that joke doesn't make any sense, I encourage you to check out episode 0, where I explain that joke as well as the purpose of the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast, where we used to talk about faith, family, fitness, finances, and fun. Now we're focused on just making a better you. So thank you, friends, as always, for tuning in. I enjoy so much the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast. Now 7+ years, 560, 70, whatever episodes. And if you haven't noticed, please check it out. I am now publishing what's called mini-sodes. You can now publish like 1 minute episodes um, as podcast episodes. And so I'm going to start publishing those a couple times a week. And so Minisode episode number 1 came up just this past week. Check that out. If you're a subscriber, you get them already. So that's one of the benefits for liking and subscribing. But I'm also going to just post those a couple times a week. So now what you're going to get is you'll get one full episode here on Monday, and then you'll get, a couple of these 60-second episodes spread throughout the week. So more goodness for everybody. So please tell people to check into the This Is Gonna Hurt podcast. I want to just kind of riff for a little bit. I usually have a focus here. I want to talk about the power of accountability while still having a desire and an expectation of good things to happen to you. The power of accountability while still having an expectation of good things to happen to you. So let's talk about that expectation first. And I'm drinking my morning coffee. There's pessimists and there's optimists, right? And some people are like, well, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist. But I think realists are just pessimists wrapped in a new name, really. And so we can walk through life expecting wonderful things to happen, or we can walk through life expecting the worst and being surprised when something good happens, right? That's the way it's generally explained to me. So my realist or my pessimistic friends will say, I kind of expect the worst and prepared for the worst. And then that way, when good things happen, I'm surprised. I think it's a dreadful way to look at things. I expect good things to happen all the time. And I go to bed pretty happy most days. And don't get me wrong, I've had my seasons, and just like all of us, but I expect to get the contract. I expect to have a good run. I expect good things to happen. And I live my life with that expectancy, right? You've got to figure that out. I think it generally comes down to what you feed yourself with. If you feed yourself with smart, hopeful, optimistic things, I think you're generally optimistic. And if you're going to be optimistic, you have to have a venue or an avenue to vent your frustrations and your negativity. So for me, I get a lot of that out when I'm running. I get that out with the aggressive music I listen to, so that then with my family and my business, I'm usually very optimistic, right? But if you're constantly just consuming drama and you love drama more than anything else, then you're probably a pessimist because you look for drama and negativity everywhere. Having said all that, though, there's nothing greater than the power of accountability. Accountability is a superpower in our day and age. Accountability is just when we go, I'm responsible. I'm not going to blame anybody, and I'm not a victim. I had great conversation with a friend the other day, and we just talked about the power of accountability. Um, if if I haven't met my goal, I'm accountable, and I should have contingency set up. And if I don't hit it, then I've got to decide what to do next. But there's so much blaming right now. Well, this is that fault. This is that fault. And whereas conditions have influence, if we live our lives constantly blaming other people, then we live in a condition of victimhood. And victimhood is powerless. Victimhood is not a way in which we achieve. When people talk about taking my power back, that's really just accountability. I'm going to take control. I mean, so be accountable. Great. Listen, terrible things happen to us. I've had awful things happen to me, and those things were not my fault. But you know what? What I do with them, I'm accountable for that. I'm accountable for how I live coming out of those situations, right? And there's such power and accountability because you wake up and you're like, I'm going to be in charge of what gets done today. I'm going to achieve. I'm going to get it. And then people will ask me, but what if you don't? I'm like, well, what's the difference? I can be a blamer and a victim and nothing happens, or I can try and not accomplish the goal. If both those scenarios happen and you don't accomplish your goal, I want to be the one who has tried to do it. I want to have a say. I want to put my hand into it. I don't want to sit around and wait for others. Now, granted, I walk through life with great expectancy. I think great things are going to happen. I really do. I feel like I attract great things and I move towards great things. And I walk into a room looking for great things and I find great things, right? But I know ultimately it comes down to, am I going to have the conversation? Am I going to put forth the effort? I've got contracts that have come to me recently that you would say, well, that just happened. I'm like, no, I worked and worked and worked and put together this reputation, this relationship, this effort. And so when it came to me, it's because I put in the work. Even if it's through reputation, you call it reputational luck. When something just comes to you because of your reputation, that might be luck, but in reality, it's because you put forth the effort. We're going to be accountable, right? So if we look around and we're like, life sucks, okay, where are you accountable? You're accountable for everything that you say and do, right? And think, I don't like my life. Well, then what can you change? You're accountable for what you say, do, eat, drink, think, walk. And you're like, well, I can't help it. I've got this condition. I get it. I've got epilepsy. And with it, what are you accountable for? What can you say, do, and think, right? We have limitations. We have circumstances that suck. We really do. Where are you accountable? Where are you responsible? And you're like, oh, that's overwhelming. That's depressing. And I'm like, yes. Okay, walk through it. Own it. Then today. And you can make a choice, right? Where do you choose to put in your effort and your thoughts and your actions? And whether you move or not, what you eat or what you listen to, you're making choices all day long. You're accountable. Let's make choices that align with the goals that we want. Let's know what we want and then let's go get them. And if we don't meet them, we go get them, right? It took me, I don't know, 18 tries to qualify for Boston. Okay, it was hard, yeah. And I'm going to keep at it, right? And you could say I failed over and over and over and over again. But when you're like, oh, it was just too hot. I'm not a good heat runner. Okay, when I need to become accountable, I need to run the heat, right? There's some days there's days you don't have it. I get it, but you're accountable. You're like, I didn't hit my goal. Okay, well, how did you eat this week? Oh, I was really busy. Well, did you plan? Like, we just have to put together accountability for our actions. And the things that are outside of our control are literally outside of our control. But let's not live as victims. And this has got nothing to do with political ideology either. I would say this to either side. If you're right or left, look, we're not going to live in victimhood. We're going to take actions, right? I see this on both sides of the political spectrum. I do. A great blaming of everyone. And you're like, okay, you got it out of your system. Now let's make a decision. There's such great accountability. So I think there's two things can be in play. I think you can live your life with great expectancy that good things are going to happen, and you can be radically accountable. Or as Jocko says, you can have extreme ownership of all those things. And then that way you wake up every day with those things in your hands. So, friends, I intend this to be encouraging. Let's walk into every room thinking great things are going to happen, but let's also be accountable for how we eat, drink, walk, choose, speak. And then next day, let's try it again. Because again, personal accountability is always greater than living in victimhood. And so, for all my friends here who are struggling with difficult circumstances, ones in which you might be a victim of something, I understand. But today, let's take a step forward of taking your power back, owning it, and you being in control of your life. And so let's get rid of the safety nets and let's just do it. So, friends, I hope you've enjoyed this show. Look out for those mini-sodes coming out. And then, of course, on Wednesday, we have to capitalize your best business podcast. Check that out. Again, friends, thanks for listening and watching, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.